Take it away, guys.
Take it
Well,
away.
welcome everybody to the Stockton Online Winter Weekend Musicians Panel, the rise of folk bands in the U.S. We're delighted that you're here for this special conversation on the history of folk dance bands in the United States. I'm Sherry Cochran, a folk dancer, longtime organizer, and someone who spent decades dancing to live music created by many of the people on this panel.
And I'm Will Cope. Some of you know me as Bill Cope. I can tell you the story about that another time, but I'm a musician, a band leader, and honestly a lifelong student of this music. Together, Sherry and I represent the two sides of this story, the musicians who made the music and the dancers who brought it to life on the floor.
This weekend, being online gives us a rare opportunity to gather voices from across decades, regions, and traditions into one shared space.
Yes, while much of these panels are about history, it's not just about dates and names. It's how people who, in most cases, didn't grow up with these musics, but they fell in love with them and they become a passion the rest of their lives. And I hope that they will talk about this, And I will start out that with just a brief story about me. When I was 16 in high school, and I was planning on being a music major, music was going to be my life. I was playing keyboard in a big band jazz group, and I just noticed the symmetry on a keyboard of D, E flat, F sharp, G, and further the symmetry from A, B flat, C sharp, D. So that just happens. I asked my high school mentor, what scale is this? It's not melodic minor. It's not, what the heck is going on here? It's beautiful. And he tried and he tried and he couldn't really do it. And the next significant thing in my life was my first international folk dance class as a freshman in college. And I heard Bulgarian Gaida, I heard Macedonian Gaida, and my head it was like they were living here. And had just been waiting to join me in my life and my passion. So let's welcome the first session. And I want to emphasize to the folks on the panel that you have a schedule, roughly 10 minutes apiece until we get to the end with the Aman folks, Aman, Nevinka, and Nama folks. So we will do our best to adhere to that. Thank you. I guess there's one other thing I would say as a preface. I mean, the panels that Sherry and Paula put together last year were amazing, but they were about the dance teachers and the influencers in the folk dance world. And when they were over, I asked, well, where were the musicians, And of course, I volunteered myself to put this together this year, and I'm so glad that actually I was put on the sword. Anyway, so let's get started. If we could welcome Hank Bradley, Nada Lewis, Bon Singer, Bruce Sagan, Mark Forey. So Hank Bradley wrote a small, thin book about cultural appropriation, okay? It was amazing, God. And then Nada Lewis created the People's International Silver String Band, and that acronym, what could be better than calling a band the PISS Band, okay? If you don't know that already. Von Singer founded Kitka, okay? And Bruce Sagan and Mark Forey have been involved with many bands over the years, and I look forward to all of them contributing. But I really like if Hank is here to tell us first about that little book and his perspective on how are we doing the right thing in regard to playing other people's music, doing other people's dances. Hank?
Hank, go ahead and unmute, please.
It's not working. Oh, here I am.
There you go.
Hello.
Hi, Hank.
So you'd like a word or two about counterfeiting, stealing, and cultural plundering?
Cultural plundering, that was it, yeah. And Kolida, you were in Kolida, one of the first international folk dance groups in the world, in America.
Yeah, I got a phone call. I was working in California. I got a phone call from Seattle saying, hey, we've got this dance group in Seattle and we're going to Yugoslavia and Bulgaria this summer and we want to take an American fiddle player with us and would you like to go? And by that time, I'd gotten pretty good at playing Southern fiddle tunes. I was happy to go on an adventure, so I went. That was the summer of 1970. That's where I met Stuart Menon, and we spent the summer going from village to village. Dennis Boxell was the leader of it. He has a silver tongue and he can talk his way into anything in any language. And we would go to villages and learn their dances. And if there were any musicians around, I'd try to learn the music too. I have a pretty good ear and if I heard a tune, I could figure out how to play it. And what I noticed toward the end of the summer was the 25 of us had gone around and we'd been very well treated in all these villages in Macedonia and Croatia and Serbia, Eastern Serbia particularly, and then later Bulgaria, where we were followed around by suspicious people wondering what the hell these Americans were up to. And
Yeah, the days of the communist bloc, boy, I remember that. They were very suspicious. You had to
yeah,
register. So Hank, I need to try to hold you to about 2 minutes so that we can get everybody some time. But really appreciate what you were telling us. And if we could hang out and maybe if something comes up or later, you might be able to comment on. Nada Lewis, are you ready to tell us about how you got into this stuff and
I am.
wound up doing the piss band?
Can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Nada.
Yes.
Good. Hi. Yeah, I actually started with folk dancing and folk music. As a teenager, I was in love with Israeli music, and I learned tons of Israeli songs. The words, in fact, when I got to the University of California, I took Hebrew as my language requirement, so I could sing the songs better. It wasn't until I transferred down to UC Riverside, I met my friend Liz Horowitz, who was into Balkan dancing. I said, "What's that?" So she took me. And I immediately switched. I went from I still love Israeli music. I still play it, sing it sometimes. I was playing guitar at that time. I had not begun accordion. But I just fell in love with the Bulgarian music and went to my first Kolo festival with her shortly after that down in Los Angeles, and it was great. It just changed my life totally. So that's how I first got introduced to the music and the dance. There was only one group that had a band, and that was up in the Bay Area. And I decided, hey, I've got musician friends. Let's put something together. So I started the first Macedonian band, and that was how I got started.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Sweet. And I think you had some interaction with Pitu Guli also.
I did. Went down to Sweets Mill, the music camp. I invited Peter Gully to come to Sweets Mill, and they did for 2 years. And I remember how exciting it was to jam with them, with our band, and stay up all night till 4:00 in the morning. Just playing tunes and dancing. Well, we were young then; we could do that.
Oh man, the days we thought would never end.
Yeah, and then the Balkan scene started up at Balkan Camp in Mendocino, and I came up there and I taught accordion and just stayed up all night for a week, and you know how it is. It was
kind of a theme there.
It was intoxicating, so I was hooked, and the band got started, and I met other musicians, and it went on from that.
Yep. Thank you much, Nada. Unfortunately, we got to keep moving along. Give everybody a little bit of time. Bon Singer, are you ready to tell us about
I am.
how you?
I am. Can you see me and hear me? Because I can't.
Oh, you
can
look
you
great.
hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Oh, you may know me as Bonnie Brown if you know me at all. Um, Actually, I did not start Kitka. Kitka was originally the West Wind Choral Ensemble, and separated off, and Susie Mintz Becker began directing it. And then she had just about had it with the group, which many leaders end up doing with, a bunch of toddlers. So she was leaving, and the group was going, well, oh my God, what are we going to do? And basically, Susie handed her baton to me, saying, Bonnie can do this. So I took over at that point, and and then Kitka was reborn, I guess. I got into this stuff I started, my story is very much like Nada's. I started folk dancing. When I was 17, I was at a Jewish day camp and started Israeli dancing. And oh my God, I loved that. And then when I went off to college, I was so disappointed they didn't have Israeli folk dancing, but they had Balkan dancing. And when I got into that, I was not disappointed. and and it was the happiest time of my life. I'm 69, and it was the happiest time of my life. I remember playing tapes in my kitchen and dancing to the tapes, and going to the Ashkenaz, and that was my place of happiness. It was so wonderful. And so I got to the music through West Wind. I was so excited when somebody there thought maybe I could actually dance and invited me to audition for that. And I was surprised I got in because when after the audition, they were naming off the people who got in, and they named all of the women. And then they started to go into all of the men. It's like, oh, I didn't get in. And then my name was thrown in at the end. It's like, wow, either I've turned into a man or, I was an afterthought. I don't know. But anyway, I'm really glad I did because the dance part was really the most exciting part for me. And the ensemble was great. And Will, man, boy, that boy could play anything. And it was just such an exciting experience, and got into swing singing and all that. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you, Bon. Bruce Sagan. And thanks for clarifying my understanding of the history. Yeah, Susan Mintz Becker, I worked with her too many years. Did a recording.
Bruce,
I'm here.
we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, so my story is similar to some of the ones that have been told. So I started life as a classical violinist when I was young. And then when I was going to college, I ended up in a folk dance class and loved it. And it was all sorts of international folk dancing. And so when I got to graduate school at MIT, of course, I looked up the folk dance group. And one of the first evenings I was there, they had a band playing. And I'd always had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to play this music I was dancing to that I loved so much. So I went up to them afterwards and said, how would you like to have somebody to play Hungarian fiddle for you? Now, I'd never played any Hungarian folk music. I played some Bartok, of course, but anyway. But I thought, here I am, this classically trained musician, sight reader. These are poor, benighted folkies, nose firmly in the air. So they said, fine, come to our next rehearsal. So I show up at the appointed day and time. They put a music stand in front of me. They put on it the sheet music for a Chop Rachenitsa. And then they take off at full dance tempo, leaving me firmly in their dust. So I found out that I had something to learn from these poor benighted folkies. Now, I later found out they'd been working on it all summer, and I was the only one who was sight reading. But still, it was a lesson well learned. This turned out to be the nascent band for Mandala, which was the Boston area equivalent of West Wind or Amman, whatever you like, performing group. And in my usual overcompensatory way, I later became music director for the band and so forth, and then went on to form other bands and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and finally learned to play Godulka, which was what that piece should have been played on anyway, because one of the things that was giving me so much problems is that I had all these E drops, and E drops on a fiddle with a D string are not easy. But anyway,
Yep.
so that's how I got
Wonderful.
started.
Thank you. And I would love for you to talk about mandala more the next time you come on. And last person in this segment is Mark Forey.
Hi, everybody. Boy, it sure is good to see all of your smiling
Hi,
faces.
Mark. Hi, Mark.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Bill and Sherry and everybody for setting this up. So, I came up playing classical music and went to UC Santa Cruz mainly as a bassoon player and as a pianist, and started doing modern dance, actually. And one summer, some of my roommates went to a summer workshop in Berkeley to study with Steve Reich and Laura Dean. It was the Center for World Music, and this was summer of '74. And two of the students there were Mark Levy and Lauren Brody. And they wound up filling in for some Turkish musicians who didn't get visas. And they taught Bulgarian music. And so my housemates came back to Santa Cruz totally stoked about what they had heard. And they had records, and they had that great Kutev Nonsuch recording. And they put that on, and I just, God, this is amazing. And then one of my other housemates said, "Oh, we used to dance to that at summer camp." I said, "What? That music's in 11/8. How do you dance to 11/8?" "Well, here, I'll show you." I said, "No way." And so I was stunned by this and started connecting with folks in the Santa Cruz area. Marcel, who somebody here will remember his last name, was teaching at UC Santa Cruz. And Al Dowd.
Vinegar.
Vinegar.
Marcel
Thank you.
Vinegar.
Marcel Vinegar was teaching at Santa Cruz, and Al Dowd was teaching at Cabrillo College. So I started going to that. And kind of in the midst of all of that, I moved to Cleveland. This is winter of '75. And I had gone there originally to study with a bassoon player in the symphony and to take modern dance classes. But I started going folk dancing again. And I asked the people there, "Hey, I really like this music. Where can I learn more about it?" And they said, "Oh, you should go talk to Walt Mahovlich." And some of you will know Walt. And so Walt and I started playing together, which was to say he started showing me stuff. Like playing tapan to accompany his accordion and gaita playing while he was living in a frat in Cleveland, and his frat brothers kicked us out of the house, and we wound up rehearsing in the garage in February, which was pretty cold. Also in Cleveland, the dance scene there was really, I'll do this fast, was really active, and one of the people they brought in to teach was Ethel Rame. And so Ethel Rame said, "Wow, you got a big voice. You should sing more." And I said, "Oh, okay, I'll do that." So that's my start.
Thank you, Mark. And let's move on to, pardon?
I said thank you.
Oh,
So
yes,
nice to
thank
see
you.
Mark.
So the next set of folks, we'll speak. So Myman Miller, Stuart Menon, Stu Brotman. Mark, you're welcome to hang out. Rachel Johnson, Dave Schockert, Aran Frankel, and Sonia Seaman. We'll see who's actually here. Let's start with Myman, okay?
I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Wow.
You are.
From Guadalajara, Mexico, okay? And Mark Forey was actually from Croatia, just so you know.
Oh, well, see, we're international. This is what international is all about. I'm going to stick to your script, explain how I got into this. And in certain ways, it was similar to both Bruce and to Mark, but with a couple of variations. One is I started out like Bruce as a classical violinist and started maybe at the age of 6 and kept taking lessons till I was about 18 and played in orchestras, youth orchestras, and that sort of thing. But I never intended to be a musician. It just wasn't a part of my thought process. And I probably spent about 3 or 4 times as much time playing sports as I did practicing violin. But I loved it. I loved the music. It had nothing to do with that. I just never anticipated making music a career. So I went off to UCLA. I put the violin away for about a year and a half or so, and I thought, well, now I'm going to get serious. So how much more serious can you be than becoming a philosophy major? Well, that didn't really work out the way I anticipated because I didn't really know enough about especially contemporary philosophy. So I went to another major, and that was geography, which I totally enjoyed and actually accrued enough credits to become a geography minor if I had stayed with it. But I was missing something, and I figured out finally it was music. And so in my junior year, I became a music major, again, classical, but not performance, with that sort of specific in that direction, but in composition, which I really didn't know very much about, but it just seemed like a good thing to do. And I'd finally learn about harmony, which I did, and counterpoint, which I did. And the rub of it is at UCLA in the music department, you needed to have 6 performance classes to flush out your, all the offerings. So I chose, not unsurprisingly, orchestra, and I enjoyed orchestral music. And the conductor was a very good conductor and actually a good violinist. And you probably heard of his father, his son, Zubin Mehta. He was Meli Mehta. And the only unfortunate aspect or personality trait with Meli is he became hugely nervous the closer we got to the performance. And he'd already suffered 1 heart attack. And after 5 quarters of this, and every time we would approach performance, I was afraid he was going to expire in the dress rehearsal. So I said, I can't do this anymore. So I said, I'll take string quartet. That looks like it's fun. It's going to be fun. It'll finally satisfy my requirements. So boom, I signed up for the string quartet class, but the professor leading the class a week before the quarter began actually did die of a heart attack. And unfortunately, a Hungarian fellow by the name of Ferenc Roth. And so
Myman,
yep.
Sorry to interrupt your story. You'll be able to tell about a little bit more about the transition to Amman and that stuff a little bit later on.
Yeah.
We need to keep, little, give everybody the space.
May I have 30 seconds?
Okay.
Yep. So I signed up for a class on Wednesday night because I was carpooling with somebody who had a Wednesday night class. And it turned out to be Music of the Balkans taught by 2 people in Amman. And that was my introduction to the folk music. And it was totally cool in the main because it was just such low pressure in comparison to the classical regime I was used to. And one thing led to another, etc. Boom, done.
What were those 2 people?
Okay. I think only those who were old-time Ammonites would know them. Carol Weber and Vic Searleson.
Got it. Thank you much.
Mm-hmm.
Stuart Menon, who is probably in...
He may not be here.
Okay. He would be logging in from Brazil, by the way. If he makes it.
His name is not here anyway.
Okay. Stu Brotman?
And he's also not here, unless he's logged in as somebody else.
Mark had some bandwidth already. Let's see where we get to here. Rachel Johnson?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yay.
Oh, yeah.
Yay, Rachel. Thank you.
All right. So, as many of them, I started playing classical violin when I was fairly young. Now, a lot of people don't know that my paternal grandfather, that's my father's father, was Greek. And so we used to attend a lot of Greek functions. So I had already had exposure to Greek music growing up. But when I was 13, in 1968, my sister started dancing with Kolda. And that was just after they got back from their first European tour. So I went to a show and I went, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I want to do. And shortly after that, they started teaching classes in tamburica. So I played prime. And from there, it wasn't until I was 14 that I started to play for the dance group. And of course, learned a lot more music. I was also in that 1970 tour to to Europe, and that's where I actually learned Godulka, because I had tried playing it before we went. We even had the Bulgarian lesson book, but could not figure out how to hold the thing. But once we were there, we had a great week of intense music with the Pleven Youth Ensemble, and every day did one-on-one and really learned how to play. So I was with the Kolida until about 1973. And then I went to San Francisco, and I was with
19
West
what?
Wind, 73.
19 what?
Excuse me. Yeah, 73.
Okay. I thought I heard 33.
Oh, no, 1973. Yeah, I don't think I'm that old yet. And ended up moving to San Francisco, where I joined Westwind, and I played with Westwind there with the, Marcus and all those other folks. And I was there probably until about 79, where I headed back to Seattle. And there I joined Radost. And at that time, I was a single parent, went back to school. So I was doing undergraduate work, playing with Radost, raising kids. And then in 1984, went to medical school in Lansing, Michigan. And that's where I ended up on the East Coast, playing a lot of music on the East Coast, meeting Bruce and a lot of the other folks, and was there pretty much played until I was done with medical school. It would have been about 1989. And unfortunately, I've not been able to play as much Balkan music as I'd like, but I certainly still play music. A lot of old time bluegrass, Celtic. So that's kind of where I've been at. So I've been in a number of groups from West Coast to East Coast.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for that. Is Dave Shockett available?
I'm here.
Yay. Hi, Dave.
Hi.
So Dave did an amazing presentation at NFO. If you weren't there, I wish anyway. Please, all of the stuff you talked about there, if you could talk about what you talked about in 30 minutes and 2 minutes here, that would be perfect.
Okay. First, responding to Myman, I remember Vic Searleson and Carol Weber. In fact, Carol Weber is the reason that I'm playing Cabal. So backing up, I fell in love with Balkan music in 1963. It was the most important thing in my life. There was very little live music in LA. There was a group called the Haiduks, Tom Breetzen Orchestra, but that was about it. Fast forward 1968, I went with my then wife, Kathy, to the Balkans. It was kind of a pilgrimage, and we didn't plan for it at all. We just figured that when we got there, everything would happen for us. And what happened was, that is exactly what happened. We ran into Petře Atanasovsky purely by accident. Maybe some of you have heard that story. And at his house, we met some people, Stephen Nahoma Sachs, who took us to Bulgaria in their VW bus and introduced us to Slavy Ivanov, the instrument maker, from whom I bought a kaval and a gaida. And since I couldn't get any sound to come out of the kaval, I concentrated on the gaida. Then a little while later, in Amman, Carol Weber, who was one of the orchestra members, said she wanted to start up a group playing Bulgarian music called Bulgarian Club. And I said, oh, great, I'll bring my gaida. And she said, no, you and I are going to play the kaval. So we went to the Silver Lake laundromat with our kavals and with this book, which I got in Bulgaria. I don't know if you can see it. No, you can't because of the background. Anyway, it's how to play the kaval. And we figured out sort of what we were doing from that. And soon after that, this little group, which also included Stu Menon, we met up with Mark Levy and Carol Weber, and that group eventually became Pitu Guli. The name was suggested, my memory is it was as a joke by Lauren Brody, but it stuck, and so that became our name. And as Nada said, we were very fortunate when she generously shared her gig at Sweets Mill with us, and we had an exciting time there. And well, there's a lot more, but I think I filled up my time.
Yep. Thank you, David. And I want to interject so that everybody knows. Okay, I had a choice of who to include, and it's all my fault. I erred on the side of inclusion. Okay, I mean we've lost far too many people in our scene, and this opportunity, even if it's just for a few minutes, to understand some of our history, was where I wound up as a priority. Is Iran Frankel here? Sonia Seaman? I didn't hear anything about
Yeah,
Iran
I'm
Frankel.
here.
Sonia's here. Yay.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
wow.
Sonia, I'm particularly interested in your choice to go the academic path, but whatever you want to share, it's yours to share.
Oh, it has not held me back at all. I mean, okay, so I am one of those Jewish folk dancer types that learned Israeli dance when I was a member of this socialist Jewish youth group, and I was going to grow up and go on kibbutz. In the meantime, we did debkas and Yemenite dances and all kinds of wacky stuff. I grew up in hippiedom, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and there was a great folk dance scene there that I would go there as a high school kid, waiting for all the weird music to stop so I could then get up and do the Israeli stuff. Whoops. Well, I ended up, I was in Boston. I started undergrad in Boston, determined to be an orchestral, classical clarinetist. That was my axe, and I would go across the bridge 3 times a week to go to MIT because for us ladies, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. And the dance scene was so heavy. And then there'd be live music. I ended up leaving Boston to go back to U of M to finish up. And in the meantime, I had the heartbreak of being told, you're not going to make it as a classical clarinetist. Uh, Probably gender and all that stuff. Put the clarinet in a closet, didn't play it for 2 years until Bruce Sagan came to Ann Arbor. And I got to meet Bruce at a folk dancing event. And he said, I want to start a band. I'm like, what? And he said, well, do you play something? Yeah, I play kind of clarinet. So I took the clarinet out of the closet, dusted it off. And there I was in pig heaven, although that's not kosher. So a big shout out to Bruce. And I got very attracted to especially Macedonian music. It just spoke to my heart. And so as I finished up my undergraduate degree, I decided I'm going to be an ethnomusicologist. And I'm going to go to Seattle because Seattle has Radost. So that's where I got to cross paths with, learn beside, and play beside the great Rachel Johnson. So that was part of that. So I got involved in Rados. Through Rados, there was a little breakaway group that in 1984, we self-funded a tour of Bulgaria and Macedonia, no, different parts of Yugoslavia, actually. And we took lessons along the way. And I should mention that it was in 1983 while I was in the master's program, I went to Mendocino. Okay, this was so badass. Watching George Chittenden and Steve Finney, who had just gotten these black market cassettes from Bulgaria of Bulgarian wedding music. And they had one of those kinds of tape recorders that could go half speed. And they're like, wait, what was that lick? And then they pick up their instruments. Okay, bump. So after that, I went back to Seattle and started learning by ear, which really helped me for 84 and on and on. So that's the beginning of that.
Thank you. And you'll be back later, I'm sure. Let's move on to the next panel with Linnea Mandel about Chubritsa and her experience, and Lou and Melissa and Jim about Sferici.
I'd just like to interject while I have a moment that there are videos of Tamar, Sonia, among many of the musicians that are on these panels that will be shown after the panel tomorrow.
Is that because you want me to pay you off about not showing?
Sonia, I don't think you can pay me enough to not play it.
Sonia, I've tried to do that, and it just doesn't work. Okay, there's not enough money that will dissuade them. Okay, I'm just saying.
All right, thanks.
So is Linnea here?
There she is.
Mute. I'm here. Hi.
Amongst the redwoods, love it.
Yes. So talk about how we got started. For me, the music and the dance have been inseparable. I was folk dancing in utero, according to my parents. They started in New York, listening to Michael Herman, came out to Southern California, danced with John Filsich. And when we were growing up, we didn't put the radio on in the car. We sang songs, lots of folk songs. When the family got together, we played music. I was mostly doing classical music, but a lot of folk music as well. And my parents started a children's folk dance group when we were all in elementary school. And we were all playing and singing and dancing together. And so it was always there, the music together with the dancing. And then when I moved up to Arcata, we had a performing ensemble, sort of a parallel at the same time as West Wind and those groups. We had North Country Folk Ensemble that was directed by Janet Sponheim and later Jeff O'Connor. And that group also, everyone danced, but we also sang and we also played music. And so it was, I was always having to make a choice which one I wanted to do. And then when I came to Balkan Camp, I kind of owe a big thank you to both Myman and Mark Forey. I showed up. I've been doing a lot of classical music. I showed up at Mendocino Camp with a guitar and my recorders, and Myman made me welcome in the Romanian ensemble and eventually switching to frula and other instruments, and showed up with my guitar and Mark Forey and the Tamburica ensemble, and I've been playing Tamburica music ever since. And so then we went on to eventually play after the performing ensemble as a dancer and singer and musician to then get involved with Chubrica. So that's the next section.
Wonderful. And you will get to talk about that later in the program. Let's bring on Lou and Melissa and Jim to talk about how they got started. Please.
Well, here's Lou here. And I started dancing in 1963 with social dance. Was sort of a thing in my family that the boys would go take dance lessons. And then I went off to college and wasn't much of that kind of dancing around. So I stumbled into the folk dance club. And in 1 year, I was helping run it. And then I realized as that year went on that I didn't understand those Balkan rhythms. And we were dancing to the melody instead of the rhythm. So I built a drum. Amazing what you can do with a sewer pipe and hose clamp and a banjo head. And so I got a little coaching from people, and so that's how that went. In fact, I even got coached a little by Ed Liddell from the Amman group. On rare occasion that I would see him, but that was very cool. And then went up to graduate school in San Jose and met Melissa. And we were interested in this dance thing, and she already could play some music. And then Mark Levy built the camp at Sweets Mill, and we all went off there to increase our abilities and to help integrate that into the dancing. And then the formation of the band, I'll leave to Melissa and Jim, but it was an interesting and accident.
And that will be in the post band part, okay? So let's just, we need to keep moving along. Melissa?
Hi there. It's good to see all
This
these
is
old
this is
friends.
really just about how you got started, okay?
Well, I started folk dancing. I learned folk dances in gym class in elementary school and had folk dancing in high school gym class too. I took folk dance from Sonny Blowland as an undergraduate at Berkeley, and then I ended up in San Jose and met this grad student in the department where I was working. It was Lou, and I started. I had gotten out of folk dancing, but got back into it. And I remember there was an event in Santa Barbara that I drove down from San Jose to Santa Barbara for, and there was this band that they had these weird instruments, and the pieces went on and on and on, and they only played in one key, and I'm trying to figure what is this, and it had not occurred to me until then that us white folk could learn to play this music. I thought music came out of a speaker, and it never. I had no idea how the music got into the speaker, but it was on a record, and you bought it, and that was that. And the idea that we could play this was a radical. There was an explosion inside my head. And then the next year after that, there was a weekend at Sweets Mill. There's that place again, and Mark Levy was offering a class in music of the Balkans, and so we went, and I actually got a unit of continuing education credit, thanks to Dave Shockett for getting me started on Kaval. I would not have been able to get a note without it, and Lou and Melissa and Jim Little and some other people, Pete Ward and Mike Gage, among others. You know, some of you people know them. We all went to this camp and then came back to San Jose, South Bay, and Cola Festival was coming right up, and we ended up jamming in the lobby next to the dance hall, and this woman came up and said, "Hi, can we hire you?" Okay, I guess we're a band. And so
Thank you, Melissa. And you'll be I'll be back to talk about the band later. Jim Little?
I saw him earlier.
Is Jim here?
Yeah, I'm here. I started being a musician at about age 10. My mother wanted me to play the piano. We didn't have a piano, nothing to make noise with. Very unsatisfactory. Eventually, I started playing trombone in a junior high band. And then high school, they said we've got too many trombone players in the concert band. Here, play this French horn, which I did. And I kept playing those instruments until I was a grad school student at Cornell in 1968, and I got hooked on the Macedonian music that they were playing at nights during the summer when I'd come back from outing club trips. So anyway, I started doing folk dancing. And then in 1973, my then wife and Nobi Curatori and I went to a Macedonian dance camp
Nobi
near Korčula in Croatia, and then went on a tour of Yugoslavia and Bulgaria. And I came back with some instruments purchased at GUM, real good instruments. And then next year I got a gaita, and I ended up going to Sweets Mill. And the rest.
Once you start gaita, it's all over, you know. And both of us took lessons from Marcus Moskov. I would want to be sure to mention him here. Marcus Moskov, who became Marcus Holt, who became Marcus Moskov, who gave Jim and I Bulgarian gaita lessons and would never accept any money for it whatsoever. Never accepted a penny. It was an amazing experience. Thank you very much. And trying to make up a little time, we're going to move on to the next group now, which will be to welcome back Hank Bradley, Nada Lewis, Bonsinger. Now, let me say, some folks who I invited, like Mark Levy, many people would wonder why Mark's not here. He declined. Some people, I won't mention, just felt like they didn't connect with that part of their life anymore. So it's regrettable, but it is what it is. So again, post-band, let's welcome back Hank Bradley, Nada, Bon, and Alan Nixon is on a boat where they won't allow him to do streaming. Bruce Sagan and Mark Forey. Okay, so take it away, Hank Bradley. And this is really focused on bands that you became involved in. Hank? Are you still with us? Oh yeah, I see you. You need to unmute. You're still muted, Hank.
I just sent him a note. He may just need to answer. There we go.
There.
I came back from Yugoslavia and Bulgaria with lots of recordings of music, and most of the things I hear I can figure out how to play. And I was already a fiddle player and guitar player and banjo player, and I had a kaval that I brought back from Bulgaria that was working on that, and tamburica, and I still have that prim, and we started getting together with people and playing tunes, and I never did. I didn't play with Kolida anymore because I went to Kansas and became an engineer. But when I came back to the West Coast again, we were playing under various names. Like we played in Atanas Kolarovsky's restaurant as Svadbari iz Seattle, and also the Zagreb Municipal Orchestra. We played Dances for Rent for Any Reason, but it never really took off. And finally, I got very taken up by both the Croatians up here and the Greeks. And my last 20 years, I've been working with Yanis Novakis as a regular Greek band. He's the singer, I'm the bouzouki player. We travel around and when we're on the road with Trisianides. The whole trip is in Greek, so I had to learn some Greek. And
I understand that.
That's pretty much what I've been doing.
Well, thank you much. Is your book about cultural plundering still available?
Oh yes.
Really? But please put it in chat how people can get a copy. I mean, that perspective, cultural appreciation versus cultural appropriation. Whose music is it anyway? All of these things are questions that all of us should consider.
Well,
thank you much, Hank.
And one more thing.
Please put that in there.
We spent our time in Yugoslavia, and we were treated very well in all these little villages. They took very good care of us, and I thought, what if a gang of Bulgarians came to Santa Cruz or someplace like that and started visiting around? Would everybody quit their job for a week and take them for No. And that's what really lit the fuse to write that book. I just wanted to put down some thoughts.
And they're thoughts that should be shared. So please put that in the chat. Nada, tell us about the formation of the PIS band and the years it was together, and why did it ever end?
It ended because some people passed away, mostly. We had some wonderful people in it. There were 6 of us. There were 2 different teams, you might say. We had a lot of interesting gigs. I could go on for hours telling you stories that have you rolling on the floor. The first band I was actually in was an Israeli band. After that, and all the Macedonian music, I played in a number of bands that played Eastern European music. after the Silver String Macedonian Band, we played. I played. We started at Hatzagana, and Kathy Whitesides was in that group along with Don Young, and we added more and more people, and we made several recordings. I see the Piss Band. Yeah, I didn't never wanted to call it that. It just happened. We made 2 albums, and then we did 2 with Hatzagana on cassette. And then I was part of the Klezmorim, and that was fun. We went on tour up north. We played, yeah, a lot of klezmer music. Hatzagana got into Romanian music at that time. And then I played with Panacea, an all-girl band with Bon Brown was in that, or Bon Singer was in that. And I was also in a Russian band. I played bass balalaika, which that was too much. That was too much. But just all these experiences and sitting in with other people, I just enjoy it so much, especially the brass stuff when we brought the brass music over and that was killer. I loved that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bon. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for all. I mean, I want to thank everybody for what you've contributed to our global community. It's amazing. It's amazing. Okay, so Bruce, would you like to add something now? Band related?
Yeah, and maybe some things that are not quite band related, but related to this panel in general. So after being in the Mandala band and then going to Ann Arbor and starting the band that Sonia was with, I started becoming dissatisfied that I was feeling like a jack of all trades and a master of none. And in particular, I bought myself a Godolka because I wanted to learn to play this music on an instrument for which it was based. So one year, the Radio Sofia chorus and orchestra were touring, and I was able to get a lesson with Atanas Volchev, one of the great Godolka players of all time. And then after that, every time Atanas came on tour, I would get a phone call. Bruce, I'm in Florida. Bruce, I'm in Florida. Come have a lesson. And I'd say, Atanas, Florida is very far from Michigan. Wait till you get to Chicago, and then we'll get together. So finally, I decided I have to go and work with Atanas on his own turf. And he very, very graciously said, in that case, I want you to live with me, and we will just work and work. So typical day with Atanas when I was in Sofia was we would get up in the morning, he would make breakfast. The lesson would start at 9 o'clock. We would have a lesson from 9 to noon. He'd make lunch. He would give me the afternoon off to practice what I had learned in the morning. And then after supper, which of course he also made, the lesson would begin again. So now I had purposely picked the summer that I was there to coincide with Koprivtsitsa. So at one point I said, Atanas, I'd like to go to Koprivtsitsa. And he said, no. They're amateurs. They're not professionals. You're not permitted to go. And I pleaded with him because I needed a break. I mean, my mind was starting to overload. So finally he let me go. But before he let me go, he sat me down and told me which of the pieces we were working on I was permitted to play in public because he did not want his American student to embarrass himself in front of other musicians.
All right. Thank you very much. I think I missed Bon this time around. Would you like to say something at this point, Bon, or? Okay. Okay, no worries. So, Mark Ford?
Sorry, I had to turn my audio on. I was laughing at when Nada was talking about playing bass balalaika. I thought she was saying she played baseball, and I just didn't see how that was relevant. Anyway, I didn't form any bands. I just was kind of a band whore, I guess. I was in this, that, and the other thing. And so I didn't form anything, so I don't really have anything to add, but I just was happy to be part of things. So I don't have to take up anybody's time, take
Well,
y'all's time.
brevity is much accepted at this point. I just want to say, from my perspective, Bon, one of the most beautiful, amazing, sultry, lyrical voices I ever heard in my life. Always a pleasure to hear you sing anything. You
Oh
open
my
that mouth,
God. Thank you.
okay?
Thank you. That means a lot to me. Well, thank you.
And I only say what I really think. I'm not buttering anybody up here, okay?
I
But
appreciate that.
it's
Thank you.
absolutely true, okay? Um, Mark Forey?
Sure. This will, I guess, lead to bands eventually. So, summer '75, I went to Sweets Mill, and I moved back to California, started dancing, and heard about it. Sweets Mill, I met Mark Levy. I think Myman was there. Chris Yacetta, who was important for me later on. Dave Shockett, and Stu Menon. And I started playing with Stu actually that summer. He was very generous. And I started singing with Danica. His wife at the time, Leanne, was singing with Danica, and Sue Mintz was directing that. So Danica, I think of as being one of the sort of predecessor bands to Kitka, and singing with them, and also started playing music with some of them. So I think it was through Mark actually that I found out that there was this thing called ethnomusicology, and I said, "Well, that sounds like fun," and uh, and gosh, I could study Bulgarian music, and in Los Angeles there's P2 Guli, so why don't I go there? And I did, and I moved to Los Angeles in '76. All of the P2 Guli folks, those of you who are here, thank you, thank you. You were also generous with total newbie, still struggling to make sounds on the instrument. So I started playing with them. There was eventually a Balkan ensemble again at UCLA that Jane Sugarman led. Jane and Mark led that. I played with them some. But at UCLA, there was also a terrific musician who was with Alma named Phil Harland. And it was through Phil actually that I got into Amman, mainly playing Middle Eastern music. I had a Zurna at that time, and being shameless, I would try anything. And they said, "Oh, you can play that. Come play first with the Aisha Ali group in LA, which was fun, and then later on with Amman." And then I don't remember exactly how that worked, but started with Middle Eastern and Amman, and then with Bulgarian, probably with Myman, and then into the Tamburitsa band. And that was like 80, 81 or so. So I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you much, Mark. And you were in Croatia currently?
But Bill,
Yes.
there was Medenglass at about that time with you and me and Cindy Burton and Michelle Breger.
And we played in the intersection.
We did.
The
And Ed
infamous
Liddell sat
intersection.
in.
Yeah, the days we hoped would never end. Sorry, I'm not doing as good a job of keeping things moving forward. So let's just I appreciate that, and I'm
No
hoping for
problem.
follow-on events where we will have more time. But let's move on to the next group now. And I want to be sure people have an opportunity to mention people who we've lost, like Chris Yesida. I'm sure you would have named Chris, Mark, Alex Epler in Seattle. Marcus Moskov, Holt. Anyway, so Myman, would you care to? And let's try and keep things a little bit more compressed time-wise, please, so we can get back to a little bit closer to the schedule. It will be what it'll be. But Myman?
Okay, I think I've just successfully unmuted. So this is about the band section. So uh, there were two bands in the early 70s one that I helped to form called Nama with Dave Owens, who was another person who died, unfortunately, not that long ago. And Dave was the driving force behind it in getting gigs and the rest of it. But It was the quintessential folk dance band for international folk dancers. And I remember playing at one point in the early 70s in at Colo Festival, and there were other engagements of that sort of where that was not only a priority, it was a requisite to be able to shift gears and play melodies from all over the map. The other band, which I kind of fell into because one of the members on this panel who's not here, Stu Brotman, was one of the members of Pituguli. And Stu was called to do I think he was a very well-known rock and roll musician. And he was, I can't recall the particulars but he ended up spending a year in Woodstock as a part of a rehearsal band. I wish I could remember the particulars. I wish Stu was here to say that, because he could fill in. But what that meant was Pituguli needed a Godolka player. And so because I played violin, they thought I would be a wonderful candidate for that. I did my best. I rose to the level of adequacy on the Godolka. And I think, so I was a decent ensemble player. And by the way, in reference to what Bruce said, Dave Gulber, who's another name that's very important in this Balkan music context, went to Bulgaria, and I asked him to pick up a Godolka for me. And the one that I had was one that was on Vulchev's wall, had a hole in it on the back side, but it still played, and it played beautifully. It would have been really beautiful in the hands of a better musician. But as I said, I was a good ensemble player, and I totally loved the music. I love not only the 2-hour Pravo, the sort of things where you morph from one tune to the other, one dance to the other without stopping, and the sort of energy level that you got in that situation back and forth from the dancers. It was totally reciprocal. They inspired you, you inspired them. And that was a terrific experience. And one which I think is probably the most formative in my philosophy of what this music was all about.
Okay, and Myman, you will have more opportunity to talk about in the Aman Nama Nevenka segment. Are Stuart Menon or Stu Brotman shown up? Mark, I'm not sure why I had you in 2 segments in a row. Obviously, my mistake. Rachel Johnson?
Yeah. So as like I said, I started out in Colita, and believe it or not, with Alex Zeppler. And when we got back from our tour in 1970, Marcus Holt came up to Seattle and worked with us for a year. So we were the original Colita kids. In fact, our birthdays were within 6 months of each other. So we were all 3 of us the same age. Marcus and I went to high school together that year. He was there. And Alex Zeppler and I also played viola in the Seattle Youth Ensemble. So it was quite the time. But, Marcus then went back to San Francisco, and I joined San Francisco back when I went down there for Westwind, and he had me play in Vito Show with him, which was along with Alan Nixon and Steve Finney. And I think our tambura player was Jenny. I can't remember her last name. So we had quite the time there till I went back to Seattle, where I joined Radost, and we formed a group called, at that point, Izvor, which consisted of myself, Ron Long, Sonia, and Steve Ramsey, and a couple others. And that I really enjoyed that band because we went back and forth between playing on modern instruments and traditional instruments and whatever people wanted us to play music for. So.
Sweet. Thank you, Rachel.
Yep.
Dave Shotgun, would you like to add something here about your band experience in particular?
Yeah, just a couple of things. One inspired by a comment that Myman made, which was the long Pravo. We had a gig at a place called Camp Matol, which was in the woods near Arcata. And that was kind of an exciting time. And one night, one of the Arcata people came up and plastered a bunch of money on Ed Liddell's forehead and said, "I want you to play a Pajdusco until I drop." And so,
So, just a quick interjection. I was there, okay?
oh,
And I was there. That was amazing. They played the Padushka until it dropped, and I think the person you're referring to who paid that tip, I think it was George Makovsky.
oh, that's a whole other story I could get into, but we don't have time. He was my partner in Beranche in Amman. But anyway, um, so it didn't remain a Pajdusco. It just evolved into several dances, including a Pravo. And I think that was the beginning of what later became the Infinite Pravo.
Oh yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah.
but the other little point, at one, we had Steve Kotansky going around with us a lot to our gigs, and that was very helpful because sometimes no one would know what dance to do to the music we were playing. And so he always knew what dance to do and was, as everybody knows, an excellent leader. So he was kind of close to us. And one day he had this record that he shared with us, which was Ilmi Yasharov and the Skopsky Svadbari. It was a Macedonian Roma brass band. And so we started listening to this record and we thought the music was amazing. And we said, oh, we have to do this. And so all of a sudden we started coming up with brass instruments to play. And we didn't do it too long, but at our famous New Year's Eve party at the Green Hotel in Pasadena, we played some of our brass music, including the Skopsky Chochek that we had fallen in love with from this record. And that led somehow to Stuart Menon teaching some brass instruments at Balkan Camp, including at the East Coast Balkan Camp. And according to Stu Menon, that becomes a very important part of the story that became Zlatne Uste.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Thank you so much, Dave. I'm going to expect that Ron Frankel has not joined us. So if we could hear a bit from Sonia
Yeah,
once
I'm not
again.
sure where to pick up the thread. I mean, as Rachel mentioned, I played with Radost in the Izvor ensemble, and we got to play for dance events, which was awesome, as well as honing our chops for the stage. It's a great training ground. I think for me, it was a continual opening of doors and possibilities. And so then from Radost to go to Mendocino Balkan camp and um, seeing not records guiding music, and then having the opportunity to work with these musicians. First in 1984, when I did this small tour with a group called Ostali Muzikashi, the Leftover Musicians, which is a splinter group. This is kind of what happens. We're protozoans, right? We keep like dividing off and creating. And then I went back and I wrote a Fulbright grant, which I was awarded to do master's research for my master's thesis in Macedonia. And I spent 2 years there. That really changed my sensibility about folk dancing. And so when I came back to Seattle, I formed a Chalgia type ensemble and we played gigs there. And it was music that I had learned from the musicians I worked with at the radio. And I was also very influenced by wedding music that was happening. It was a wild scene. And I found it so difficult to dance to recorded music. I remember playing a gig for one club, which will remain nameless, and we played. I mean, it was a tune I had learned from the musicians who had played on the record. And the dancers just stopped and they did a bow and they looked up at me and glared because we were still playing. And they're like, no, this is where the choreography stops. And I'm like, I learned this from the same musicians that you had on that record. And this is actually the style and the improvisation. And so that really was an interesting point for me where I actually became much more interested in working with musicians, dancing to live music, which I carried with me when I went to UCLA. And then that's like a whole nother story because after I came back from Macedonia, all my Macedonian musician friends were listening to Turkish recordings, black market ones. This is where I learned about arabesque and artists like Deli Selim and Mustafa Kandıralı, and decided to learn Turkish clarinet, and then I got a Fulbright for my dissertation research. Spent 4.5 years there with my partner, Tom Padden, and our small son at that time. And my advisors thought I would never return. I didn't come back for 4.5 years. And came back and wrote and kind of kept going. So that's been a whole nother journey.
Understood. Wonderful. And let's move to hearing about Chubritsa and about Sfiraci in particular. Linnea?
Yes. Arcata's had a long history of having the folk dance club having an adjunct music group called the club band. Everyone welcome, all levels. When I first moved here, I joined the group because I wanted to learn to play tupon, and they had this decrepit tupon that barely played, but I was really excited about it. After a little while, Kevin St. Laurent and Rebecca Nagel and Craig and I decided that we needed to go to Bulgaria, experience Bulgarian music there, and come back with a whole bunch of instruments. We were in Gabrovo and at Stefan Stefanov's house. And Ivan Kovachev, who was a professional musician, happened to be there by chance buying a tambura. And he helped us with translation as well. We bought a number of instruments. He also connected us with gaida makers and tapan makers. And we bought instruments for many of our friends. And we were so excited about all of this. We were out in the front garden of Stefan Stefanov's house, and we just said, we need to form a Bulgarian band. Here we go. And we started playing right then and there, and that was the beginning of Chubritsa. And then,
wonderful. Thank you, Linnea. And now, in regard to Sfiraci, I was actually thinking that the three of you would be able to dialogue together at the same time. The session has not worked out that way, so whichever one of you would like to actually take a couple of minutes to talk about the formation of Sfiraci, I would appreciate that very much to help us get back on track.
Well, I already told the beginning of the origin story, which is that we were after Sweets Mill, and we just wanted to keep playing together, and so we played, just informally at each other's houses, and then we were jamming in the lobby at Cola Festival, and this woman from Turlock came and said, "We want to hire your band." And so suddenly we had a band, and I couldn't think of what to call it except, maybe the players, Sfiraci is to play. So that's how we became Sfiraci, and we've been meeting pretty much every week ever since, and that's coming up on 50 years.
Wow.
Our group has grown and shrunk over the years. For a while, we had like 6 people, including Mike Gage and Pete Ward and Cliff, God, what was his name? Anyway, and then, Mike got a postdoc and left, and Pete got a divorce and left, and I don't know.
And I've even had the pleasure of sitting in with Sfiraci occasionally.
It was an honor. And so, Kip McAtee was with us for a while, and then he moved to Hawaii and married a beautiful Hawaiian goddess. And,
yep. Wonderful. Thank you, Melissa. So now let's move on to the last segment, which will tell us about Aman and Nama and Nevika. And actually, I think we should begin with Trudy and Susie are supposed to be in the same place and will be able to talk to us and actually have a dialogue.
And Will, if I can hop in, 10-minute warning.
Yep, got it. I'm
We
there.
Thank you,
we are here together because Susie and I have sung together for 55 years. She is the person I most enjoy singing with in my whole life.
Ditto.
And so we decided to do this together. Hopefully, we'll do it quickly enough. So I'm not going to go deep into my background. I played a little guitar and folk music when I was young. But when I went to see Zorba the Greek in my second year in college, I thought I was going to die because I just loved that music. So then I started folk dancing, cafe danza, and wherever in the intersection. And to this day, I love Greek music. But I joined Aman in 1968. Seven. My husband, Peter's here. That was the best time of Aman. I found Peter Israel there. But Aman was really fun. And we have to say that I think that going on from Aman to Nama, and especially Navenka, that Tony Shea taught us how to learn dances and songs within the genre. He would sit us down before he taught us a dance, show us recordings from the village, from the ensembles, and he would talk about the costumes, the styling of singing. And you can go and talk about the music on Sunday nights.
Yeah, we met. Alman rehearsed twice a week, and on Sunday nights we had our choral time. That was an hour, and we copied. I was reminded when Sonia said, "But I'm following something so closely and trying to learn it." There's a lot to be said for that. Just that scrupulous attention to detail, pronunciation, turns, all the little goodies. By going over it and over and over it
until it becomes your own, and you go study it more. Yes, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So we were doing music from all over the Balkans in Amman, and we were also a lot of times we were dancing while we were singing, which now sounds like a lot of work. Now I can just barely sing while I'm singing. But
right. Yeah. But every Sunday night we had an hour of singing, and we went over pronunciation. We went over just the styling, and so that really was for both of us, I think, a real grounding for going on to Navenka later.
And we still use that today. I mean, when we do a show, we sing a song. We don't just sing a song and another song and another song. We try to tell the audience a little bit about, where it comes from and what the point of that song is in that culture. So they sort of feel invited into the song a little bit.
So I don't know how much you want us to talk, but I was going to go into quickly how we ended up in Nama. They needed a costume break. They needed a quick break in Amman, and David Owen said, and they had already started Nama, I think, with the orchestra, but they said, "Can you guys sing a song with us, the two of you?" And we said, "Sure, we'll do it, And that was the beginning of us being part of Nama. And David, you wanted to talk about David. So there are two of us talking. Do we get twice as much time?
No, but we have to talk twice as fast.
Yeah, okay, we're fast. We're going to go fast.
Dave, when he formed Nama, the idea was to have a music band so that the DJs at a dance party didn't have to keep changing 45s.
The teachers.
Running back and forth. They're having albums flying through the air. Yeah. You would have an album, you could just put on a whole side and just dance a varied, sort of international night type of thing. And it was really fun. And we did live, and we started recording.
And Tamara, people would come up to us sometimes if we added an extra verse or...
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And make faces at us. Okay.
No, that's not the choreography we learned.
So... the whole idea, he taught us around his piano. He let me bring my toddler. David put together that Nama Lesnoto medley, which we are so happy that we did because it was played so much across the United States for closing and in the world. We lost David. If you ever get a chance, listen to his medley of waltzes. hilarious.
Oh, the Nama.
Hilarious.
It's such a witty piece of music. The Nama Waltz
Yeah.
Medley.
Let's have Myman. Let's have Myman talk about that in a moment, okay?
Yes.
I mean, I don't remember how many waltzes were in that, but it was just phenomenal. As was the Treaty Petit that David Owens got from a book. You know, I mean, I looked for a recording of that with the master Bulgarian recordingist for years, and I couldn't find it. And finally, I found out that David Owens just got it from a book, and he and Myman made that arrangement.
And we got a lot of words from Dick Crum. We were very fortunate to have him in LA.
Oh, there's a name we got to mention. Yes. Oh, Dick. Oh, a quick word, okay? I remember sitting at a table with Eran Frankel and I think Mark Forey and a half dozen of us in Los Angeles at one point of time. And Eran just says, I mean, we're all musicians playing this music, trying to do this music. And Eran just says, you know, if it weren't for Dick Crum, we wouldn't be here.
Right. Yeah. Amazing man.
And sweet as the day is long.
Yeah. So, how did Nevenka start? What happened was a lot of the women in Amman were starting with families. We were having 2, sometimes 3 rehearsals a week if we had a show coming up. And do you want to go ahead and talk
Well, it was
about
too much. We dropped out to have our families, and then I was still kind of hanging on with Amman, but you guys...
So some of the people said we should get together to sing just for fun, and I wasn't there at the first meeting because I had to be somewhere. I came back and they had given me the directorship of this. I had never directed anything in my entire life, but when I was in Fiolica, which was in the singing group in Amman, I knew what I shouldn't be doing, and I knew how. For instance, you never say to a singer, "You're going flat on that." Because every time they come to that very place, they will freeze up and possibly go flat again.
Or sharp.
Or sharp. Well, sharp is okay. Everybody loves sharp, but nobody likes flat. Okay, and just letting people, my philosophy was always to let everybody try for the solos, not just your 3 best soloists and things like that. No, let everybody try, and let them try 2 or 3 times, because you freeze up the first 2 times. And because of that, we've had really sharing of the wealth in that group, and the group gets along so well. There's no competition.
Nevenka is a no diva zone.
It is. It's
absolutely not a diva. We've had a few divas, but they didn't last long because it wasn't a good fit.
And I have to mention, Bill Cope came down to our big shows so often over the last 25 years, Bill?
One of my favorite things. And I believe Nevenka is coming up on their 50th anniversary in April. Is that right?
That's right. Woo-hoo! April 25th. We're going to have a big show, retrospective. We have new directors. I have retired from directorship and pretty much singing. But my assistant director, who became my co-director, is now a fabulous, much more organized director than I ever was.
So let's bring Myman on for the last couple of minutes to add just a little bit of context.
Thank you
also.
so much,
Myman?
I'm talking so fast, sorry.
Understandable.
Okay. Oh, is this okay, Bill?
You're good.
Okay. Well, first of all, I can't let Susie and Trudy go without saying you guys just look wonderful. It's just so great to see you on the line, on the screen. And I should say also, you were known for, I can't remember the reason behind this, as the Palachinka sisters. Right? Am I right about that?
Yeah. I think it had to do with our figures. Tony called us the Palachinka sisters one night, and it kept on. Which means pancake, just in case you don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, it was a joy. And Bill wanted me to comment on the waltz medley. I think Dave's waltz medley, because as much as the Nama Lesnodo medley really did take off and became sort of a standard in folk dance circles all over the country, absolutely right about that. The waltz medley was just hilarious, and it was a total Dave creation. And I remember Bill telling this to Bill, and he said, "I don't know it." So I sent him a link to it, I think it's 26 waltzes, and it starts out innocently enough, and then it just makes these left turns without signaling all over the place. Ends up, I think, with the Star Spangled Banner. I think that's the
It
last
does.
one. Anyway, so yeah, Dave had a kind of a really sort of an MIT offbeat sense of humor, and
He did.
it was just a lot of fun.
Okay, thank you, Byman. I hate to cut it short. So much more that we could tell, so much more backstories.
Yeah.
But we need to bring this to a close. And
Talk
in
about Alma
summary,
for a second.
oh,
No,
30 seconds, quickly.
30 seconds. One thing with Amon that I think it's really important to say, and I'm going to was the transition from what Trudy and Susie were describing in 1968 till about 1973. Amon was really was based at UCLA because it was like a university intramural club, like the chess club, like the rowing club, whatever. But there was also a strong association with the Institute and the School of Ethnomusicology within the music department. And you cannot, that's really important to the foundation, especially from the musical standpoint. So many musicians in Amman went into ethnomusicology. Mark Forey, of course, Mark Levy, who didn't join us. That was my entree into ethnomusicology, led me to Romania for a year. And finally, one last thing. I had a band, speaking of bands, I had a really interesting and very terrific band called Fuge Imaginia, which in Romanian means either the imagination runs, you're drunk, or the vertical hold on your television set isn't working. You could take your pick. With Alex Epler playing cymbalum primarily, Stu Brotman on bass, and Michael Alpert, accordion, samitsa, and singing, of course. And it was just it was a terrific group. And for those of you who want to catch up with Alex in that film, the documentary is called Cabal Park, and it's available on YouTube. And I can't recommend it highly enough because it's a moving tribute to somebody who's no longer with us. And he was
who was phenomenal.
Extraordinarily interesting,
gifted,
diverse individual.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Thank you very much.
Just one more thing. 9 of the people on your list here today have played either and recorded with the two of us and Aman, Nevenka.
And we love you all of you.
We feel so honored to have known all of you, and thank you for this, Bill.
Back at you. Totally back at you.
Thank you so much.
So thank you one and all. It's been amazing. Sherry, would you like to do a brief wrap up?
Sure. I'm overwhelmed, of course. Such a wonderful conversation that we hope to continue in the future, probably at an NFO Folk Chat, or 2 or 3, and or more. We also want to tell you that tomorrow we have another panel with East Coast folks at 3:30, and there will be videos at 5 o'clock afterwards. Thank you all for being here.